Was Kylo Ren a bad fighter or just go to a bad school? Let's see if we can make it work on All Hail Retcon. In Star Wars The Force Awakens, we're introduced to Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is really good at hacking at consoles, doing force grabs, using his crossguard lightsaber to fight against the snow. When it comes to fighting against other people, he's not very good. Now, why is that? He fights against Finn, and Finn holds his own, arguably because he has stormtrooper training. What about Rey? In order to answer that question of why Kylo Ren can't take down Rey so easily, we have to take a look at his training. Now, one of the things about the Star Wars universe which is so great is that besides all the movies, you have video games, you have novels, you have comic books, a lot of other people that contributed to George Lucas's universe that really gave us all sorts of great information about secondary characters and other planets and things like that. And one of the great contributions is about the type of fighting that the Jedis use. There are 8 forms of fighting, and these forms are very similar to someone learning Kung Fu versus Judo versus Karate. They're all martial arts, but they have different types of discipline, and they all focus around using a lightsaber. Forms were created to address the weaknesses of previous forms. Every single form has a number, a form name, and then a description of its way. So for example, you have Form 7. Form 7 is called the Ferocity Form. It's called the Way of the Vornsker. Form 7 was created by none other than purple lightsaber wielding Mace Windu. Form 4 is called Ataru, the Way of the Hawkbat. It's also known as the Aggression Form, used by Qui-Gon Jinn. Form 2, called Makashi, also Way of the Yasomiri, also called the Contention Form, and one of the more famous users of this was Count Dooku. So if every form is made to correct the mistakes of the previous form, then we have to take a look at the very first form. The very first lightsabers were ceremonial, they weren't really made to be used for combat, and they were unstable, so they weren't really something you could depend on as a weapon. But once you could depend on it as a weapon, that's when they started using it as an actual form of fighting. But keep in mind, when they first created the very first usable lightsaber, it was developed before there were Sith Lords, and before they thought they would be using lightsabers to fight other people with lightsabers. Form 1 is called Shi-Cho. The Way of the Sarlacc is also called the Determination Form. Form 1 is actually considered very similar to Kendo, Japanese sword fighting, where it targets the head and the body. Kylo Ren, who at the time was still going by Ben Solo, was trained by Luke Skywalker. Now, if we all remember our history, Return of the Jedi, once it was over, the Emperor was defeated, the Sith were defeated. So there's a very good chance that Luke Skywalker in his training didn't think that people with lightsabers would be fighting other people with lightsabers. So in Luke Skywalker's training, it's theoretical that when he was training Ben Solo, he was training him in the ways of the Force, but he wasn't training him in the ways of fighting other Force users. Which why it might seem very likely that if you were to think about the kind of fighting stance that Kylo Ren used, it's probably going to be considered Form 1. I've given you some examples of different forms, but I started with Form 7. I did say, though, that there were 8 forms of Jedi combat, so what form am I missing? And the answer is Form 0. It's kind of a very Zen method of fighting. In fact, it's not a fighting style. Form 0 is the notion that you should find a non-violent method of getting out of a combat situation. So, although there are technically 7 forms of Jedi combat, the 8th form, dubbed Form 0, is the one where you shouldn't be fighting at all. I think it's kind of cool, but I hate to use Form 0 against Kylo Ren. I don't think it would do any good whatsoever. Every Monday you'll see a new blog post, on Wednesday you'll see a playlist, and on Throwback Thursdays I'll have a link to an oldie but goodie All Hail Retcon. Thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions about things I can make work, love to hear about it. See you soon.